The Nintendo Switch is home to some incredible titles, action games that embody the true spirit of fast-paced gameplay, blazing speeds, and truly intense moments. In this video, I'm going to be going over 30 big must-buy action titles for fans of high-speed gameplay and combo-driven fun. Some of these titles will have other types of styles or genres in them, but they all embody the spirit of great action gameplay. So let's go ahead and jump into the first title here, and that's going to be Persona 5 Strikers. And this takes what you usually know about the Persona games, which are turn-based RPGs, and says, all right, throw that out, let's get a big action RPG system in here and emphasize the action. It's got a lot of fast-paced moves, different characters to use, great locations to go over, and it's actually got a pretty good story to boot as well. You're going to be learning a lot of fast-paced different styles of gameplay that you don't normally see in the typical Persona games. So if you're more into the real-time action of combat, and maybe you could never get into the Persona titles, you might want to try out Persona 5 Strikers. I also love the music in the game. I think that the combo system is very well done as well, and I think that it has the right mix of smaller encounters where you're fighting against a certain group of enemies and boss battles, and then of course the bigger Dynasty Warrior style encounters as well, where there's a ton of enemies on screen. So Persona 5 Strikers absolutely is one of those must-buy action titles on the Nintendo Switch, especially if you love a little bit of that RPG action in there as well, because it blends that in there seamlessly. Now, next up on this list is Bakeru, which is a very interesting title because it's a hidden gem type of game. And really what this game does, it actually is really fun. It's got a lot of different styles to the combat that you can employ, lots of different areas as well. And most people don't know about it at all. It kind of just came out and was under the radar, but it's a really good game. I particularly love the art style in there. It has a traditional Japanese settings in different locations as well, with a lot of different combat abilities and equipment to go through as well. So it's one of those games that I didn't really talk about too much, but I thoroughly enjoyed every single bit that I played, in a hidden gem action game as well. So check out Bakeru on the Nintendo Switch. But next up, we're going to talk about some games that you guys probably know a bit more about, and that is going to be Hyrule Warriors. Starting off with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, then we'll get into Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. Both of these games are absolutely incredible overall if you're looking for the Legend of Zelda, but in a full-on action game. It's got the Dynasty Warriors style of gameplay overall, but what this game does a little bit different, starting off with Age of Calamity, is that it's got a lot of variety between the different characters that you can use. I actually felt that it was really fun to go through and play as the champions, in addition to the different characters that they have in there. Even Princess Zelda was super fun to play as, and they really did a bunch of research in seeing exactly what type of attacks that you would never really see the characters do in their mainline games, but they actually bust them out here. I also love playing as Urbosa. I thought that was super fun, and it's really the only place, if you really want to play as the champions, if you really want to see what they're about, it's the only place to really get a hold of their combat and their moveset overall, because I'm not sure if these characters will ever come back in any type of way. So I think that Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is so good for that. Next up, Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. This is the perfect version of the original Wii U game, and this one's pretty good, and I think that some people might like it over Age of Calamity because it runs so much better. It runs at 60 frames per second on the Nintendo Switch. It has all of the DLC, it has all of the content. You can literally play this game for like 300 hours plus because of so much stuff that was added in, and with that silky smooth frame rate, it's gonna feel like butter playing through. It's got all the different characters, it's got all the extra stuff with the Linkle and everything in terms of the female Link and stuff, so it's really good overall, and I can recommend it absolutely for people who maybe don't necessarily like the fact that Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is a bit choppy when it comes to frame rate. Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition could be your action game to really check out on the Nintendo Switch. And I know that if you can find it physical, that one's getting kind of rare overall. Looks like Nintendo didn't print too many copies of that one. But let's go and get to something that's a little bit more smaller scale, but still plenty of action, and that's Berserk Boy. Berserk Boy, one of the unsung awesome titles that people didn't necessarily talk about too much, but now that's kind of coming into play a little bit more as people are looking through their backlogs and looking at games that maybe they missed. And Berserk Boy is a nice blend of the Mega Man games and the old school action games kind of all put into one. A lot of different powers, really fast, fluid gameplay, very fun bosses to go through, levels and stuff to dodge overall. But the gameplay is really where this game stands out, and I think that the responsiveness is really where Berserk Boy is very, very good overall, especially with the different powers that he has and the abilities and just the game flow overall. So highly recommend as a nice little 2D action game, Berserk Boy on the Nintendo Switch. Now, before we get back into the list, if you're enjoying this video, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos as soon as they drop. Thank you so much, and let's go ahead and jump right back in. Next up is a Platinum Games classic, and that is the Wonderful 101. And this is a really weird and quirky type of action game, but it really fits kind of if you're looking for something different overall. You have all these different little heroes that are all sharing a power belted by one of the Wonderful 101s, a secret organization that's fighting against evil in the universe. And they all have their own big special power between Wonder Red, Wonder Blue, Wonder Pink, Wonder Black, Wonder Yellow, Wonder Green. It's really cool how it's done. Almost has like a little bit of a Power Rangers type of feel to it overall. But once you actually start doing different combos, doing different Unite morphs, and going through the levels, you actually realize that this game is really brilliant in terms of some of its design. And there are some faults of it when it comes to everything with the game, but overall, the different styles of gameplay and the action that it does from level to level is really well done. And it's going to be one of those games that you remember, despite it not being the best reviewed. But to me, it's a must buy, must play, just because of how unique the action is in the game. So the Wonderful 101, absolutely one of those titles that you need to check out. Next up, we're gonna get into some more action on the Nintendo Switch, and that is Azure Striker Gunvolt. The Gunvolt games are incredible overall, and we're gonna go over Gunvolt 3, and these titles are fantastic. I would start out with the Striker Pack though. So Gunvolt Striker Pack, that gives you the first two games, then Gunvolt 3 is in there as well. And what makes all of these games really fun to play is that if you're looking for a Mega Man style type of game, or if you like the Zero games overall, that's what this is. A little bit of RPG elements, but it's all about action, linking up bullet shots, then hitting them with that electricity and lightning, kind of going through, tagging them up, and then blasting them as well, but then also dodging and sliding and jumping and fighting different boss battles. The action in here is crazy overall, so I really like Azure Striker Gunvolt. Striker Pack, pick that up. Azure Striker Gunvolt 3. The story's actually pretty good with Gunvolt and kind of how their world is and everything. So if you're into Mega Man, which the Mega Man games are great action slash platforming titles as well, but if you're into that and you want something maybe even a bit more intense, Azure Striker Gunvolt might be your game to pick up as an action title. But let's get to something that's a bit more brutal here overall with how it looks, and that is Katana Zero. This is one of the best independent titles that people just don't talk about as much anymore, but back when it came out a number of years ago, man, this was the indie game, dude. Katana Zero, super smooth, silky gameplay, really crazy story, very kind of weird at times in terms of its themes and everything, but once you get into that combat, man, it is so much fun. You are going to be slashing enemies down through different locations overall. There's boss battles as well. There's really interesting dialogue that goes on between there, but the biggest thing with this game is, once again, the action and the controls. Controls are so smooth. You never feel like you make a mistake or you mess up because of the controls or anything like that, and I really enjoyed the various different places that I had to go to cut down certain people that weren't necessarily great, or maybe there's something else wrong overall. So I think that it puts a little bit of intrigue overall with the story. So I highly recommend Katana Zero on the Nintendo Switch. But let's get into one of the classic weirdo series when it comes to Nintendo games, and that is No More Heroes. 1 through 3, you can pick them all up. Even Travis Strikes Again, that game is there too. But No More Heroes 1 through 3, they're all available. The whole No More Heroes series is available on the Nintendo Switch. I highly recommend all of them. No More Heroes 1, No More Heroes 2, No More Heroes 3. I think that they're all really, really good. But if I had to pick one of them just to talk about right here now, because Travis Touchdown is crazy, Suda 51 is crazy. The way that they do these games are just nuts. There's a lot of really weird and outrageous themes in these titles, but you have a beam katana that almost plays off of like Star Wars a little bit, and you can learn a bunch of different types of wrestling moves in addition to different slashes. You can do different mini games inside side games, but if I had to pick one that's my favorite out of the three, it's No More Heroes 2. I think that No More Heroes 2, since it's in the middle, it's worth playing 1 and 3 just because of No More Heroes 2. That has the most beam katanas that you can get, has the most different types of wrestling moves, has the most variety within the combat. In my opinion, you can even have dual sabers in that game. So if I had to pick one that's the best out of them, I would say No More Heroes 2, but they all have their individual unique things that they do best in the series. No More Heroes 1, some of the best mini games that you can do. No More Heroes 2, combat. No More Heroes 3, it has some of the best, I would say, story combined with boss battles. The boss battles in No More Heroes 3 are pretty crazy, but some of the other stuff are just kind of like but I absolutely recommend all three of the games. I think that they're great overall. So No More Heroes series, absolutely must play, must buy action games on the Nintendo Switch. But let's move on to another must play from a very good developer, and that is The Messenger from Sabotage. You know them from Sea of Stars fame as well. The Messenger is a great 2D action game to play. If you love the Ninja Gaiden old school action games, this is your game right here. But it's got that classic weird kind of indie humor kind of tucked into there as well. It's got a lot of different locations to go through and a really cool style switching mechanic, which I think really just fits overall Sabotage Studio, their style, what they can really do with their gameplay. But yeah, the action in here is great. You're going to be platforming and jumping and doing all sorts of boss battles and everything. I really love The Messenger. I felt that it was a really good love letter to the old school action games back in the day, like Ninja Gaiden. So absolutely The Messenger, one of the best titles, action games to pick up on the Switch. Next up, we're going to talk about Ninja Gaiden, the Master Collection. This one, you get Ninja Gaiden Sigma, Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma, and Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, and you get all of the DLC, all of the extra content included, and Ninja Gaiden is one of the originators of fast-paced action gameplay overall. But this Master Collection gives you everything that you would want. It's super fast, it's really cool overall. The games are very fun to play, but they're punishing as well with the difficulty, but it's well worth it to go through. I played and beat all of these games originally, and I've checked out the Master Collection, and while not perfect, I still think it's one of the better action trilogies put together, and one of the better action games that you can play on the Nintendo Switch. So I highly recommend anybody that's looking for some super fast-paced ninja action gameplay to check out Ninja Gaiden the Master Collection. But now we're going to get into the best old school action beat 'em up on the Nintendo Switch, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. I can't recommend this game enough because Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, its only issue is that it's short. Now, there's some extra DLC that you can pick up as well, but the only problem is that it's short. The gameplay is so much fun. It reminded me of back in the day playing the TMNT arcade game on the NES with my brother. It was awesome. Seriously, this game is so good. I think that it feels crunchy to do the different hits overall. It feels good to play as the different Ninja Turtles and the other characters in the game. I felt that the structure is really well done. I felt that the controls are super smooth and fast. Everything about this feels like a very pristine Turtles action beat 'em up title, so I absolutely recommend it. I think it's incredible. It's just really short. That's the only problem that I have with the base game, but there is the extra DLC as well, plus there's replay value. You can replay it with different turtles and pick up things that you didn't get maybe on your first run or so. There's also different modes that you can play too, so there are plenty of reasons to go back and play it, especially if you're a perfectionist and you want to really go through and play on the hardest difficulties and everything. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, absolutely one of the must-play beat-em-up action games on the Nintendo Switch. But kind of transitioning into another one of those, and that's Streets of Rage 4. Incredible action beat 'em up, incredible legacy of old school beat 'em up action games. Streets of Rage was it back then in the early 90s, and Streets of Rage 4 picks up right where those games left off. It is a great beat 'em up with a really cool story, better than what you'd expect, and really kind of harkens back to, okay, these developers, they know their history with Streets of Rage, but the action in the game is awesome. The combos and the beat 'em ups are very well done, and there's more depth in the action gameplay than I thought there even would be, because the original Streets of Rage, I mean, it's got some stuff here and there, but this one really takes it to the next level with all the different amount of combos and things that you can do, plus the playable characters is just great as well, and the art style is fantastic. Music is classic Streets of Rage, and this game actually has more content than TMNT Shredder's Revenge, so you can put more time into this. There's online multiplayer as well, so it really just checks every box for a great 2D action adventure beat 'em up, and that's why Streets of Rage 4 is on this must-buy list. But now we're going to move on to a little bit of a different style, but still very action heavy, and that is Cave Story Plus, one of the original indies to bring out what an indie really is. And this game's awesome. You're going to be blasting your way through tons of different levels overall. It's got a lot of fast-paced action, upgrades, and weapons to do. And once again, this is a classic. Cave Story, if you haven't played it, it's a must-play title on the Nintendo Switch. Some light RPG elements as well, a lot of different locations to go through and blast away, bosses to fight too. So Cave Story Plus, you get all that extra content they added in there as well. Get it on the Nintendo Switch anywhere that you want. Can't go wrong as a 2D action indie game. But let's get into another indie legend, and that is Cuphead. This is a 2D action shooting game that really tests your, I would say, sanity overall, because there are some times where I was just getting cooked over and over and over, but that's what makes the action so good in this game. It's gonna put you in a variety of different situations, whether you're flying through on a plane and shooting stuff, fighting against sunflowers, or just doing crazy bouts against really weird old school like 1930s or whatever cartoon looking characters. It is so good overall. The story is kind of weird, but at the same time makes sense for what they're trying to do. You made a deal with the devil, they took your life, you got to go take it back, otherwise you're in trouble. So I like the premise of that, but the gameplay is really where it shines. It's going to get your blood pumping, it is going to get you upset at times, unless you're really good and you can just blast through the whole game, but most people can't do that. So if you want a challenge and if you want some great action to boot as well, check out Cuphead if you haven't already done it. But next up, we're going to move to a little bit more of a AAA action title, and that is Monster Hunter Rise, which definitely has the RPG elements in there, but what it emphasizes is big style action. You got a bunch of different weapons that you can use all in real time. It is just a blast to play through, and Monster Hunter Rise gives you exactly what you're looking for when it comes to an action title. It's going to give you a variety and plethora of weapons. It's going to give you a ton of different monsters to hunt. It's going to give you a lot of different locations to go through. It's got great online multiplayer, and it's going to have the depth that action fans are looking for when it comes to different weapons, combos, and skills in order to really take advantage of action players' time and their efforts into combo complexity. So that's what Monster Hunter offers. It offers so many different styles and ways to play. Action game fans go nuts over this type of game, and if you haven't checked it out yet, Monster Hunter Rise, it is there for you to play. Story's okay as well, and they've actually added quite a bit of extra content too, with a full-on expansion that's going to get you new weapons, new monsters, and a whole new location to go through as well. So Monster Hunter Rise, absolutely one of the 30 big must-buy action games on the Nintendo Switch. But moving on to the next title, let's discuss Metroid Dread. This is the pinnacle to me of the 2D action experience overall. Metroid Samus has been a mainstay in the gaming industry for decades now, and I think that the pinnacle, or at least one of the pinnacles in the HD era for this style of game, is Metroid Dread. The boss battles in this game are phenomenal. The story is incredible, and the gameplay is second to none for a shooting 2D action game. If you want perfection here with controls, with preciseness and combat, Metroid Dread is that. Sliding through different areas, blasting your way up, upgrading. This is the action game that you want. You're going to have that Metroid quote-unquote Vania type of feel overall, with a huge area. You get certain upgrades and things, and you have to go back and actually open up doors or certain things that you weren't able to do beforehand, but I think that it really works out with the gameplay and everything. Metroid Dread is just one of those games that you can play over and over. You can get faster times, you can blast through the different modes that they have, and I think that it's one of those titles that honestly is going to go down all time as one of the best. I think it's one of the best, if not the best Metroid game, and Metroid has such a high high bar overall for its titles. So Metroid Dread, absolutely one of the best action games out there. Next up is the Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. Speaking of Metroid Dread overall, Prince of Persia, a game that actually tries to copy what some of the best Metroidvanias do, some of the best Metroid and Castlevania games do overall, and they put their own twist with the Prince of Persia style action gameplay. It's so well done, guys. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown might have not sold the most overall, but the gameplay is it. It's got these really cool twin blades that you use overall, plus it's got a bunch of different abilities that you can go through. The platforming in the game, the action and the speed, the boss battles are incredibly well done as well, which is a theme with action games. You gotta have good boss battles, but I think that the powers and the combat and the sleekness of it, that's really where it shines overall. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown just has so many things that it adds to the table that if you love the old school Metroid, or if you love Metroid games, if you love Castlevania, you're gonna like this one right here. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, one of the best action titles on the Nintendo Switch. Easy, and it's an easy recommend, especially with it being a lot cheaper now at this point. Next up, we've got another classic but still great, and that is Devil May Cry, the original game, and Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition. You can go ahead and skip Devil May Cry 2, that game sucks, but Devil May Cry 1 and Devil May Cry 3 are incredible. I'm going to be focusing in on Devil May Cry 3 because I think that game still holds up the best to today's standards overall. There's still a lot of combo variety. They've got some nice little features tucked into the Switch version of the game, and the gameplay is still silky smooth. It's still got great combat. It's still got a ton of gameplay value overall, and there's still a lot of creativity within the combo system. So if you've played Bayonetta, or if you've played Astral Chain, or some of these other games, it's not going to feel like you're going all the way back when it comes to a stylish action title. So I still really enjoy Devil May Cry 3 with its variety and different types of weapons that you can use. Dante's sass and style is still super cool, albeit a bit corny, but I still really like it. So Devil May Cry 1 and Devil May Cry 3 are still phenomenal action games that are must-buys on the Nintendo Switch. And now we're going to move on to a game that recently just announced that they sold 9 million units, and that's Nier Automata, the End of Your Edition. And I know why it sold 9 million plus units, because the game is incredible, and the Switch version is surprisingly good overall. Like, people don't expect this type of big PlayStation 4, Xbox game to transfer over well to Nintendo Switch, but this might be one of the best conversions of those impossible ports, quote unquote. The action is retained. It's 30 frames, but it's solid for the most part overall. There aren't a ton of places where it really gets bad, and it retains the whole game plus then some in there. And this is one of those titles that you don't just want to play through one time. You want to play through multiple times to get the full scope of the story. So there's replay value, everything's included right then and there, but the action is what makes it great. You've got some great combos, great upgrades, great different weapons to go through, great bosses to slash down, and it's going to test your reflexes overall. The sign of any great action game. Nier Automata, the End of Your Edition, is incredible. I highly recommend it on the Nintendo Switch, and I highly recommend playing it multiple times through. Even if you're getting cooked overall, keep on playing through, keep on trying. You're going to love some of the stuff in the game. It really is that good. Next up, we're going to move to Dead Cells. This is a rogue game, which I don't like rogue games, but it's a rogue title overall that I actually do enjoy, because Dead Cells offers a lot of variety within its combat system. One of the first, I would say, rogue games that I actually gave a true shot to after my nightmare that I had with the rogue game that launched with the Nintendo Switch, or one of the first games, has been Heroes. And I just said, what the heck is going on? I didn't know what rogue games were, but Dead Cells actually drew me in, and I played it, and I tried it, and I played over and over and over till I got through and I beat it. And it's one of those games where you just have to do one more run, one more different weapon combination, one more little thing would have got you to win. The levels are all randomized overall. The locations are similar, but it's randomized in terms of what's happening. So you never know what type of gameplay you're going to get, or what type of weapons or gameplay that you can manipulate in order to finally get through on that run, as you get better and better and understand the levels and layout and combat more and more. Dead Cells, definitely one of the best action games on the Nintendo Switch, and is a must-buy title as well. And moving on to another Metroidvania style of game, Hollow Knight, this is one of the earliest big hitters on the Nintendo Switch for an independent title, releasing back in 2018, but it's still one of the best, and I'd absolutely recommend it even to this day. It plays better than a lot of action games that are coming out now at this point. Hollow Knight has superior level design. It's got great gameplay. You feel precise overall with what you're doing. You feel like there is a lot of variety within what you can do with the combat, and it's fast paced. Also, the action in the game in terms of how you're doing the platforming challenge and some of the other things is really well done. But Hollow Knight just has the atmosphere. It has the atmosphere, controls, and gameplay to really just take over, and that's why it reviewed so well, and it's such a legendary game when it comes to independent titles out there. So Hollow Knight is absolutely one of the must-buy action games on the Nintendo Switch. Next up is probably my favorite trilogy of games out there, and that is Bayonetta 1 through 3, if not probably the best action game, or at least tied up there with another game that we're going to talk about, Bayonetta 2. I think that Bayonetta 2 is phenomenal, and I would say that out of a combo system, it might still have the best combo system ever created. It is so creative, it is so good, the action is so fast, and I think that the Bayonetta games just really embody everything of what a great action game should be. It has all the content, there's plenty of replay value, there's a ton of different weapons to use, there's different characters as well. So that's really what makes the Bayonetta franchise so fun to play, is the creativity within the action gameplay and the combat, plus the sassiness of the main character of Bayonetta as well. And between these three games, if you pick up Bayonetta 1, 2, and 3, you're going to have hours upon hours upon hours of content to go through as well. People were kind of down on Bayonetta 3 a little bit, but once you actually just get through it and kind of ignore some of that stuff out there, I had a blast with Bayonetta 3. And Bayonetta 1 is still awesome too. Like, it still plays really good despite it being a decade plus old at this point. It's still one of the better playing, one of the more innovative, even in today's day, action games out there. So you can't go wrong with the Bayonetta trilogy on the Nintendo Switch. But next up, we're gonna get to some Castlevania Dominus collection. This is a collection of the 3 Castlevania DS games, some of the best pure Metroidvania action titles out there, and I highly recommend all of this to all of you guys. If you love Castlevania Symphony of the Night, or if you love Metroid games, this Castlevania Dominus collection is for you. These 3 games on the DS that were released are awesome. They've got a bunch of different powers. Essentially what you do is you can go through and you can defeat enemies in a huge labyrinth style of game. Defeat enemies, you get their power, and then you can equip that power. But it also has a whole huge arc, plot, storyline within the bigger Castlevania universe. So it all just fits really well. But I think that the action gameplay within the collecting the different souls, being able to battle with them, is incredibly well done. I really like what they've done with all the different games here. And the games are just so well paced, and the structure of the games are really well done as well. I think that Castlevania Order of Ecclesia might be my favorite out of all of the Castlevania games, with the exception of Symphony of the Night. I think that Order of Ecclesia is just so good. The way that the story shakes out, the way that the combat works, how they kind of did some things with the structure, kind of shaking things up just a little bit from the typical Castlevania games, but the gameplay is really where this game shines. The powers that you can get as well, it's just so good. So I highly recommend Castlevania Dominus Collection. I think that you're going to have a blast with it if you give it a try. Next up on the list is another Rogue title, which is surprising to me, but hey, we got to get in the best action games here, and that is Hades. Hades has great action, super fast paced, a lot of different weapons to use, a lot of different powers and abilities. And I think that the biggest thing with Hades overall is that the characters and the story are surprisingly incredible. The voice acting is great, and you're way more invested into the characters and to the story than you think that you would be from when you first look at it. That's how great Hades is, but it combines that with silky smooth controls, with great action and powers that get you thinking, okay, how am I gonna make my build for this run so I can finally beat this game? And when you finally get that first run complete, you feel like you've accomplished something incredible, but there's even more to do afterwards, and Hades is the gift that just keeps on giving. Hades 2 is probably going to be a Nintendo Switch 2 title at this point, so if you haven't played Hades 1 yet, check out Hades. It is incredible. And for the final title here, guys, I had to say pretty much the best for last, and that is Astral Chain. Astral Chain, an action RPG, heavy on the action side overall, but Astral Chain has some of the most unique combat. That's what makes this game so good. Like, it's great to have great action gameplay. It's great to have fast boss battles and a lot of different weapons to use, but how do you actually intertwine everything? And very much like Bayonetta 2, the Bayonetta series overall, Astral Chain by Platinum Games is right up there. It's right up there, and it gives you everything that you would want to see in an action game, but then it even goes a step further because of the uniqueness of it. You have these different legions that are at your disposal, and you essentially send them out. They fight with the CPU, but then you can manipulate them to do certain attacks, while you yourself, a police officer for a special unit in the future, actually can fight as well. So you can do team up and combo attacks as you fight through, and it's just incredible. I had so much fun blasting through this game with a variety of different legions, and there's tons of replay value, tons of different challenges and achievements to unlock that actually give you tangible, real bonuses to use on upgrades and other things in the game. So they're not just hollow things that pop up on your screen. You actually want to go through and do them. And like any good action game, it's got a lot of variety within the bosses and enemies. You're going to be fighting different types of enemies that take different strategies that you need to use different weapons for. So you're always going to be switching things up, always going to be switching up your legions, switching up what you can do, your weapons, leveling up different stuff so you can get through even better. So I absolutely recommend Astral Chain as one of the pinnacle action games ever made and one of the best must-buy Nintendo Switch action games on the platform. So that's gonna wrap it up for this video here, guys. We went over 30 plus big must-buy action games for the Nintendo Switch. What other titles that you think that are great that I did not include? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell. But now that we've wrapped up the action games here, if you're looking for the best RPGs to play on the Nintendo Switch, check out my video right here on screen.